Bill,
Hello.
thanks for staying with us through these.
I mean,
dry
we're
times.
competing with a bar here, Harold.
Yes.
That's pretty tough.
We're going to make it worth it. We're going to make it worth it. And maybe somebody brings in bar.
Yeah, bring the bar in here.
Yeah, we're going to build an app to order food to bring in here.
Love that.
Good at yes. So I'm Harald Kirschner. I work on VS Code and GitHub Copilot. And good.
I'm Pierce. I lead the product team on VS Code.
And we're going to talk about vibe coding. Who here has negative thoughts when we say vibe coding? Oh, sorry, yeah. It's a safe space. You can raise your hand. It's OK. Yes, vibe coding is definitely, it has come an interesting path since February, I guess, or some time.
Feels like a lifetime, Harold.
Feels lifetime.
It's been a couple months here.
Yes, we've been vibing. So in AI years, it's been a long time.
Yes.
But vibe coding in its essence, maybe take a second. Who is an active user of GitHub Copilot or other AI coding tools? OK, we got a bunch. OK, cool. We'll not have to explain AI. But to explain vibe coding, it goes back. We can't have a presentation about vibe coding without the tweet from 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 of fully give in to the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget that code even exists. He had a good moment there, and it's a lasting tweet. I congratulate him. But what we're trying to uncover in this talk, to go quickly through our demos, is how to bring vibe coding from the fun chaos that you all should embrace to something that's more deliberate and can scale. And the made-up words we use here is Yolo vibes, where it's all about creativity and speed, where it's really instant gratification, which how 𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 sits there and makes UI happen, and you talk about it. And it's about learning. And there's good parts to it that we can do here, that we're going to demo. If you use the right tools, you can then scale it by adding more structure. So structured vibes is this balance and sustainability.
It's an oxymoron, structured vibes. I feel like they conflict with each other.
Maybe those are bad names. Maybe it's a moment in
Branding.
time. Yeah, it's a moment in time of capturing these best practices that are now landing more and more tools.
Yep.
And they're not just like more AI tools can use them. So once you learn them and how to wrangle AI into a structure, it becomes easier to use. Maintainability comes out of it. It's easier to read and quality control, and you eventually move on to spec-driven vibes. Again, made-up word. Keep using it to make it happen. But it's where we see it's engineering excellence being applied. These are not new things. These are all things that if you do proper engineering, you're already doing. And that's where you get the scale and reliability and team velocity. And you're officially in professional Zen vibe mode. So YOLO vibe coding as a first one. It's outcome first. I mean, that's where 𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 sits, just looking at the screen, looking at the website, using voice input, the natural language way of just talking to AI, of making things happen, and just accepting any changes, because the update is important, like of how it looks like in the end. And it is valid to use. Like, vibe coding has its place. Who has seen the vibe coding live session? One of the vibe coding live sessions? Somebody? OK.
Built a game.
Build a game.
Or
we built a game. We had fun. Everybody who talked to afterwards, that was a fun session.
It was.
So
it was a good
it
time.
was fun. So
Yeah.
if you build a game. So rapid prototyping, proof of concepts. You just want to build something. You don't want to ship to production. You just want to make a case. You want to try something out. UX mockups, very typical case. I talk to many enterprises that want to empower everybody who needs to influence people to build prototypes. If you come to a meeting without a memo, but with a demo, then you have a chance to actually convince people and explain your case.
You don't like meetings where we write a really long doc and I'll have to read the doc? You'd prefer a demo?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And that's actually in our org now also. Like,
yeah,
actually,
yeah. I feel like
demos
also
and
you have the opportunity, like when you build something, you have the opportunity to like explore different scenarios and things like that you didn't even think about, right? Because you're writing a doc, and when you're building it, you're vibing out, right? You actually explore some of those scenarios that you would have maybe not uncovered if you just wrote the doc.
And AI can challenge if you. One thing I did during the live vibe coding, so check out the recording, is I tried 2 different demos and just ran them side by side to see which one's better. Even if you run the same prompt multiple times, you will see AI taking its creative freedom and probably coming up with different solutions to the same idea. So learning, that's a big one. Now there was like you did Godot, which you don't know. I use Three.js, which I know somehow, but not So it's a great way to just throw something at the wall and see how AI solves this problem using a technology stack that you might not know offhand.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe one of my bad things that I thought when all this first came out is like, oh, well, this is good for all the major frameworks, major languages, et cetera, right? But the interesting thing is I actually see myself exploring with more frameworks and tech that I actually have very little time to learn, right? And so it's kind of counterintuitive, but I've actually been exploring a lot of new stacks as a result of this.
Yeah, same. And that's the way I like to learn. I like to have working code in front of me and hack on it and understand concepts. So vibe coding something with Copilot and having Copilot walk you through it, it's a great way to learn. And then personal project, I think that's our main demos usually. And because actually there are useful projects to a degree of just, I need to solve this problem now. I need to spend a weekend with my kids on coding a game. That could be a great personal project. But there is no maintenance. You just create them. They're for you. You don't ship them to production. They're a safe space. Maybe you do. OK, so to go into demo mode, we're showing Yolo vibe coding live.
Yeah, we're going to Yolo something together. I think my go-to demo these days is a water tracker, so maybe we should do that together.
Yeah, are you all hydrated enough?
Well, I'm not hydrated. I've been drinking a lot of coffee today. No water. Hashtag team no water. OK, so inside of VS Code, I have the latest GitHub Copilot. Well, actually, I don't know that I have the latest. I'm not feeling that dangerous that I'm going to update my extension literally right now. But I have latest as of a couple hours ago. And I'm in VS Code Insiders. How many people are in VS Code Insiders? So we're literally shipping that every single day. So the code that our engineers merged into main yesterday is on your dev box today. Pretty cool. And for a daily build, those in the room who are using Insiders can speak to it. It's actually really, really stable. It's what our team is self-hosting on every day. So then I opened up chat. We have different modes here. If you haven't seen these already, I'm going to pop into agent mode. We also have different models. So I'm actually going to use, I'll just use GPT-4.1 for this. There's other models here, Harald.
Where did they come from?
Where did those come from? That's curious. So we have this little Manage Models button down here. And I can actually come in and I can select to basically bring my own key and use models from different providers. So I could use just the models that we already have inside of Copilot, but connect directly to Anthropic or OpenAI or Azure or even Gemini. I can also use 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗀 if I wanted to use local models. OpenRouter, I can come in and pick any OpenRouter model I want. So I've gone ahead and configured some of these. You noticed I was in agent mode and I only had 3 options, even though I have 4 enabled here. And that's because we do a check to make sure if you're in agent mode that the model actually supports tool calling. So I don't know how this is going to work with all my AV equipment pulled in here, but we're going to try to just use voice to actually build something. So let's say, let's create a basic water tracking app in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I want the ability to increment and decrement my water consumption in ounces against a daily goal of 96 ounces. And so I just use my voice dictation here, and agent mode's kind of kicking it off. We've already laid down our index.html file. And so yeah, this is what I'm doing when I'm vibing. I haven't really said, maybe I did specify the stack here, but I'm not going into the implementation I actually want agent mode to use here. So we have my basic app. I'm going to actually fire up live server. Always fun. Give it a second for the terminal to go. I can also just boot it up this way. All right, so here's my water tracking app. You can see very ergonomic. We're incrementing by 1 ounce. We're vibe coding here, right? We're on the left end of the spectrum. The expectations are low. So one of my really cool favorite things to do, especially when I'm working a web stack, is hot reload is amazing, right? I just want to focus on the outcome to what your slide said. So I'm actually going to pop out.
Nice.
Look at this. This is a new feature. Open in new window, right? And we have this new turn on always on top. And so I can come over here, and I can actually say, OK, cool, let's make this look like, what's your favorite operating system of all time?
Windows 95.
Windows 95, please. I noticed some people, it's so interesting to see how different people prompt, right? Some people are I need to type very formal, like I'm writing a business email.
Yeah.
I'm just even when I'm like not doing full-on vibe-driven, development here, and I'm vibe coding, I still find myself like using just banter like that.
Yeah.
I do say please. I like to say please. But if the model is making me angry, maybe I wouldn't say please.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I don't want my private chats out there.
But you don't want to be rude to the model either.
No, I don't want to be rude.
But just don't say please anymore. But I think what I hear is a use case actually from some is just when they're on a train or on a move, just starting to record their thoughts on a project. And if you ever tried that with AI, just give them your like 10-minute long blabbering of like how you might solve a problem and have them extract into a problem. Like build the app I talked about. And you imagine like if you give it to an engineer, like this is just, you give me your notes, like can you write a spec for that? Like AI would just, I will gladly interpret those into a spec and then make an app from that.
Exactly. Yeah, like I find myself voice dictating a lot of the time, and it's super useful. And like even, let's see. So now we're going up by 8. That's exactly what we want. So this app is coming along. Of course, it looks like Windows 95. I'll show off another cool feature that I like to use frequently. So we'll go ahead and close out of all my windows, keep my changes, and I'm actually going to open up. Where are you? There you are. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to do Command-Shift-P, simple browser show, and I'm actually just going to pop that URL. Yes, I said URL instead of URL into simple browser. And this is a new feature, so like not simple browser. This has been in VS Code for a minute. But if you see down here, we have this add element to chat, right? And so what you can actually do is I could either just click start, or I could come down here and even select continuous selection if I want to select multiple elements. And I can basically like prod Copilot to do certain things. So I could be like, let's see, like for this progress bar.
The progress bar needs.
Yeah, like let's
sparkles. Or
make
like
this
like the animation.
Have an animation when I hit my goal.
Yeah.
And also make the progress look like Windows 95. And so we're actually going and grabbing that div when I select that element. And then also, like, we take a screenshot. All the models inside of GitHub Copilot support vision. So we've taken a screenshot of that. So we're also sending not just the like code, but also the visual context of the model to go do something. Yeah. And like we said, like you're looking at my prompts. I'm not actually saying like anything technical here. I'm just kind of outcome driven, right, and what I want. And this is often how I'm starting something. And the cool thing about like this web stack is the entire app can be fit in the context window of the model, right?
Yeah.
And so like that's also helpful because then if I want changes, it has literally all the context, which is super helpful. So you can see here, like we're making sure we have all the right stuff. Look at this helpful line it added. We made some changes to our CSS over here.
Right. You're not vibing right now. You're looking at the code.
Exactly. I shouldn't have looked. I broke the vibes. All right. Let's see. I don't know. Oh, look at that. All right. Let's see if I get it. Oh, look at that. Great job.
Oh, the yellow. That was good.
So, I mean, this is just a simple example, but honestly, like I have a lot of things that I'm kind of exploring with this stack, right? Yeah. To your point about learning, like when I want to build something new, like in the old days, you pull up a tutorial and you build your hello world, and it's like you spend hours on that, you don't get anywhere. And with this, like you can actually kind of get somewhere super fast. And so I feel like that learning curve is like way better.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have known like how to make an app, like what are the right border radiuses.
Right.
Just figure it out. It knows.
Yep. All right. That's like just vibing out.
Yeah, so in this case, you still have to hit keep and all. Like,
yes.
Is that 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗶cie compatible?
It depends. There's different settings you can use. So like, if I come over into here, we have a lot of auto settings. So there's like auto save settings, auto approve settings. So like, we didn't show any tool calls here besides writing to the file. But like, say I wanted to use like an MCP server to do something or something like that. I didn't want to approve every single tool call, which I could still do. Like that's the default mode. We have this cool auto approve setting in here. It should say Yolo, in my opinion, but I'm not a copywriter. And so basically, like then you're really vibing out because you're not having to actually go and approve each tool call inside of Copilot chat. So yeah.
Which for Yolo mode is a valid choice.
Yes. Exactly.
Everywhere else is not.
Okay, so that is vibing out.
Yes. Switch back to the slide. Okay. Summarizing, we have different panels in age mode. If you haven't tried it out, pop it out, move it to the left, move it to the right.
Yep.
If you think it's in the wrong spot, you can customize it. Important, like iterate. There's a follow-up field for a reason. If you think like agent mode made a mistake, that's the vibe coding rule of number one. It's just keeping feedback coming. In case of problems, on the right side we see the undo, which I haven't shown. There's a big undo button on the top. Any changes that happen.
It's right here.
Any changes
Undo,
that happen.
redo.
Yeah. You can safely go back and just scratch it. Git can also help, just reset the whole app. But undo is really easy, especially if it goes off the rails. Voice dictation we showed off. What's also a cool feature you can customize, you can hit Command-I and keep holding it, like the hold to talk and just going off and then keeping it go. There's a lot of customization in there. And then the visual context. So we already showed that you can auto-attach things using the browser preview, but you can also attach images just as fine, which usually makes for great results. So wireframes, anything is really up for grabs of how you want to communicate. And that's the nice part. You don't have to prompt it. You just explain it like these are boxes, like make it look like that. Yeah, so next one is some tips. So use it, try it out. That's I think the number one is don't fear the YOLO vibes. It's about building this AI intuition, how I framed it here. It's this AI sense and taste. I think I hear mentioned a lot. And that's really about figuring out the sweet spot for AI. And maybe the caveat is in the moment of time. Because models change, context changes, the capabilities changes, the tools change. So AI will get better at things it couldn't do before. But that's about just trying it out. And YOLO mode is a great way to just give it a free-form canvas to paint on and see what happens and what it can do and how to recover and steer it if it goes wrong.
Yeah, and I think on that one, like the agent mode stuff is different, right? Like it is behavior change. You do have to think about, okay, what am I giving the model? How am I prompting, that sort of thing. And so I think in some ways, like it does, to your point, require you to just go build stuff with it. And you're kind of like, okay, it's good at this, it's bad at this. Versus like, I think, you know, when people think about GitHub Copilot, sometimes they think about like ghost text completions and stuff like that. Yeah. That's great too. The nice thing about that is you don't really have to change how you work as a developer, right, to partner with that. You're in the editor, you're writing code, you're getting suggestions, and that's cool. With agent mode and any prompt first thing, right, you're having to think a little bit more about how do I partner with the model to really get exactly what I want as an outcome.
Yeah, it's a habit, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, it's not just like, oh, it can write tests for me. It's not just a chores, but you want to level up to it can actually work on a feature and build a good draft for me. User-learned frameworks is a classic thing out of the box. There's training data, and of course, like if a framework is well known and has long-standing, consistent conventions, it's really good for AI because it gets it right. Anything newer with legacy stuff that potentially like does break is harder, and anything that's lesser well known also. So just for successful vibing, when you try it out. Don't be surprised if you tell it, like, use this esoteric stack, and then it says, like, oh, like, I might want to use Next.js for that, because I know that. So it can do it. And then I think the last one, iterate like a whiteboard. That's really the point. Like, it's throwaway code. Presume AI gets it wrong in the next step, and be ready to just start from scratch and try it out again, which is exciting, too, because oftentimes when I try it again, it's like it comes with a completely different design. It suddenly blows me away. And that's something, the exciting part of vibe coding is the throwaway part and embracing it.
Literally same model, same prompt, right? Like you can get different results. And so definitely as a speaker, it makes your life interesting in terms of preparing for these things.
Yeah, but don't do talks on AI.
Yeah, exactly.
OK, next one, we have structured vibe coding. Maybe no vibes anymore. Maybe there's still vibes left. We'll see. But it's all about having a good template to start from. So you want to have a consistent tech stack that AI can understand and reason about. So right now, in this demo, we start from zero. Here's an HTML file. Just make something. And if you have a sort of template, you have dev containers set up. If you have custom instruction, we're going to show that. That's what AI needs to be successful and to have more consistent results. And those instructions that you have in there really define how AI should work in a code base and how it reasons and navigates the code base and writes good code. And then custom tools is all about bringing that any expert knowledge you need for that stack in as well. And we're going to show, we're going to mention MCP, as every talk should. And I think where to use it, like you will at some point level up from YOLO once you start trying to actually get something out as a team You figure out like, oh, actually AI is best at this stack, and that's what we like to work in. So let's make a template from it so we can keep making our UX mockup in a consistent way. They're easy then to transfer over to engineering. This bootstrapping of greenfield projects, I talked to many companies around that they want to have this AI-powered kind of just starting from 0 to 1 really quickly and getting people off the ground because they can demo stuff. They can finally get something from the team. They can discuss the design, a flow, and that's really important. And then with a template, they have a long-lasting scale. And then anything off the mainstream. So if you do have your specific stacks that you want to customize against, then those templates can provide all the structure that AI can be successful with a stack that isn't popular in the training data. The picture shows a wireframe and more structure. So AI did a good job there explaining structure.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like Harald and I do a ton of these sessions internally. Like teams come to us and say, how can we start using things like agent mode? And honestly, it feels silly, but even writing very basic instructions of this is how my code base is laid out. These are where generally files can be found. This is the tech stack I'm using. I mean, even really, really silly things like, hey, can you make my UI look good? Like that seems very silly that you would need to have that in your instruction, but having that one line in your instruction makes a big difference in the design. And so like I always tell people, like if you're gonna do one thing and you wanna do as minimal effort as possible to do good instructions, because then it scales to your whole team, right? It's in the repo, it lives in the repo, you're gonna show that off. And so then your whole team benefits from someone going and writing this. Yeah,
and those are just 2 pages, maybe less in this case, and probably even more than you would need to start.
So what do you have in here?
So I was like, do I need to give an outline of like this repo? But then I have custom instructions explained in the repo.
There you go.
That's a benefit. They're both for humans and AI. So what we have here is runs in a dev container. This is so I don't have to install anything on my machine. It's just open the app, open the dev container, and everything works out of the box. Using a kind of nice front-end stack of TypeScript, Next.js, AppRouter, React, 𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗃 for some UI components to make it look consistent, Sentry for observability, and Tailwind for. And that's like a good intro stack to just working on front-end and getting something off the ground quickly. I give some guidance on TypeScript and just what it should use and not use. And that's usually where you want to go first. If you see AI making mistakes, tell it to not make the mistake and use something else instead. And that's, I think, how you want to bootstrap your custom instructions. You have experience of what AI does well, it doesn't well, and you nudge it towards the right path. And this is like most of these. Actually, I just added one today, which was the next npx 𝗬𝗬𝗀. So 𝗬𝗬𝗀 at some point deprecated the old command, and this is the latest. So, and I added a line, like you keep doing this wrong, so I'm gonna now put it into instructions to not use that. And actually the agent recovers. It's not breaking the agent because the terminal command returns, this is deprecated, use the other command instead. And it keeps going. It's like, oh, I'm gonna fix it, and it keeps going. But it's just annoying because it's another tool call and it takes longer. So
this is basically a living document. Like maybe you built it up one time, but as you're partnering with agent mode, like things happen and you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen again. Let me put that in the instructions. So when is this file applied?
Every time in agent mode. So this is the Copilot instructions one. This is workspace-wide, and everybody, this is committed to the repo. So everybody who's opening that repo will get those instructions. Okay. So it's a high bar. That's why you should start simple. It lowers the risk of you breaking everything for your team. You don't want to be that person. But you want to be the person that helps to raise the quality for the team. So you want to be that person. So start small and just keep adding. And then this is included in every agent request, every chat request, and inline chat, everything that generates code that's not completions. Okay. But we're also working to get it into completions. So this will change over time. It's also used in Padawan or
coding
agents.
Hashtag branding.
Hashtag branding, yes. And in code review on GitHub. So it's used across the GitHub Copilot ecosystem. So that customization really pays off across all platforms. And then the other one, more fine-grained one that we recently landed, allows you to scale it up to larger repos and use cases. In this case, I have a front-end instruction that only applies to TypeScript and TSX. And it's more about the details of how to write the TypeScript. So once a TypeScript file is in context specifically, it will also pull in these instructions. So that's how you can scale this file in larger repos, which would massively grow and be included in every request. You don't want that.
Or you could have conflicting things, right? Like you could have different tech stacks for front end, back end, and then it's getting confused because it's all on the same thing. And with this, you can kind of get fine-grained about how you're applying
Your front end team, your back end team, your data science team, they can all optimize it for their own use cases.
And this is just like a glob pattern. You basically...
Yeah, so glob pattern. And there's some more changes coming up. So we have lots of improvements planned of making it, allowing the AI to pull it in automatically, and a lot of kind of niceties in here. Right now, it's really simple. It gets included when you have the context. So easy to optimize and then to run. Let me just run something while we browse through the rest. So what I also have in here, just before I run this, we have MCP. I said it. It's here. So we have I'm going to give it a task, research the best repository, community metrics. So we now have a new open source project maybe, so we really should monitor our community in there. See how many people contribute. I'm pointed to a specific file, the page.txt, which this is this front page here, which just has some template starter. A one-page dashboard for key metrics with time series. I love dashboards, so bring the kitchen sink of all the graphs. I don't have the data yet, so just use some mock data and mention the VS Code repo as an example. But also importantly, I want this to look right and want this to work, so check and Playwright. So as I run this, let's see, how do all these tools come together? So Playwright by default isn't built into GitHub Copilot. It could maybe use the command line to check it, but actually in this case, I do have it set up in my settings. Because, there we go. So this is in my personal settings for VS Code. And
so you set this up, and this works across all your workspaces when it's in your settings like this?
So anytime I can have, hey, I made a UI change, quickly check it in Playwright, and Chrome will pop open and just do its job and take screenshots, navigate, check the accessibility. It's really awesome MCP. You can actually see the tools. It showed up before in this list. So I have the GitHub MCP installed, the Playwright one, the Perplexity one, and Context 7.
So what's Context 7?
Context 7 is actually in a repo. So in this case, I have Context 7 with this one, and on top of that, actually tell the AI to use it, which will explain what it is. So Context 7 is used for fetching developer documentation. And this one, I tell the AI to access developer documentation, use the get library docs, which is provided by Context 7 with these library Ds. So Context 7 will actually find specific domain expertise from these documentations on like which components exist and other things for 𝗬𝗳𝗫𝗃 and in this case, Lucid icons and Next.js. And that's a way you can bridge that training data gap. In this case, Context 7 is, interestingly, only the latest version. So I think there's still some work to do. You can still link it to potentially like using web fetching to other URLs. So depending on where your docs live. And this way, Context 7 does the trick because it looks up the latest.
Yeah, and the thing I really like here is like your custom instructions are not only saying, here's how I want you to work with my code, you're also even saying like, here's the tools and how I want you to invoke them, right? That's pretty cool. Is there any special format or anything? It looks like you're just kind of saying like, use these tools and it kind of figures it out.
Yes, it's natural language in the vibe mode of choice. So in this case, let's just walk through what it did. Let's make this a bit bigger. So it did run Perplexity because it needed to research good community metrics. And the question it had, you can always expand those. What are some key community metrics for Git repositories like VS Code? Include time-based metrics. So it kind of interpreted my question and ran it as a search. And then you see the response from Perplexity as well. So some good ideas in here. I agree. So that helps you with review and understanding what the AI does, right? Because you actually see what the tool tried to execute as input and what the output is.
So if it like gave you a weird response or it failed or something like that, you just pop this down and you're like, that's not quite what I wanted. Try it again with this, right?
Right. And I see a lot of issues reported of like, it didn't do the right thing, and then people don't expand them. So I think that's the first step you need to do. Like, just what did it try to do? And then you can also adjust it. In that case, I have actually the setting on that auto accepts. So, but all of these actually you can run as well and actually edit the input beforehand.
That's cool.
So in this case, it actually ran a follow-up question to see like, what are good dashboards? Like, how should I build a dashboard? Which is cool. Like, you have like this little PM built in that you can potentially pivot. Like, what are some like make some user research around dashboards for repository metrics, and Perplexity probably does a good job of doing some deep research on the internet, how to visualize these aspects. Because it gave it a very high-level task, right? It didn't give any constraints on what it needs to do. So then it found it needs to install. See, it made a mistake again, though. So it's just instructions. So
you shouldn't have had auto-improve on. You could have edited it.
I could have edited, yeah. But switch it off right now so I can show some more of the buttons. OK, now it goes in and installs the rechart, which it needs, and then it starts editing the page. And then hopefully, in the end, it all works. But meanwhile, I can show you with dynamic distractions we showed, context tools. Let's just show you the MCP again. So who has been using MCP here? OK. Who has been learning more about MCP and wanting to try it out? Not as many. OK, hopefully we get you out here. Like, I need to try MCP. So yeah, MCP servers are really just these small executables on your machine. And they're all about adding context to GitHub Copilot. It's a standard in the loosest way possible, but it's a protocol that everybody can implement. So once you write your tools for MCP, there's a lot of other clients that can utilize them. I mean, that's the biggest win. It's a massively growing ecosystem. You have things like Context 7 that are popping up. They're just like, here, we scrape the internet of developer documentation and provide it for you. Perplexity, that's the official one. They just provide it, so you can hook up everything to Perplexity. There's a lot of change happening. There's still authentication happening to make MCP more secure and scalable. But that's on MCP talk. So, but there's a lot more changes coming. That's just the early days, managing it in JSON. There's a lot of things we already landed. Like you have, for example, easy access to logs to see if something goes wrong. You kind of see the protocol broken down and how it actually communicates. So the developer experience is really important. But also for us, it's really important to make sure that your secrets stay safe. You might have seen a lot of MCP configurations out there that have your plain text API keys. We're trying to avoid that. We give you ways with inputs and with env files to configure them securely, because this file is committed to a repo. It shouldn't have my API keys.
Right. Yeah, this is cool. So like there's built-in tools. So like things that I can already do in VS Code, like I can look at the terminal. I can, yeah, exactly. You're pulling them up here. These are things that we just kind of provide built in, but there's always more you want to do, whether it's reaching into like an external system. But I mean, even Burke, front row over here, he's on his phone, so I'm calling him out. Dude, I'm your friend, right? What are you doing on your phone? All right, all right. He's tweeting about the session. All right. So he built an MCP, and it's a notify MCP. So that's, you were saying it's running locally on my machine for some of these servers. And Burke's is pretty cool because agent mode's doing its thing. It's working right now. You might go get a coffee or something, right? Come back. It'd be great if you had a notification. It'd be cool if the product team built that in. But the cool thing about MCP is there's something you want agent mode to do. You can go build an MCP server. So that's exactly what Burke did. And boom, you got some notifications. Except not me, because I'm D&Ding right now, because I'm presenting. But it works great when you're not presenting.
We will.
I don't think he has it. He's not being a good friend now.
OK, yes. So I think the message is you can make your own MCP servers.
Yes.
If you try out, there's a TypeScript SDK. C# SDK is really good, really ahead of the spec. Python SDK. Most languages have some way.
I'll show some cool iOS ones in a minute.
Yeah. So there's a lot of them out there. And I think I see a lot of people just like, oh, agent doesn't know about that. I can build an MCP for that. And then share it with my teams and colleague and just make it work for everybody.
Well, and you know what I've been kind of experimenting more with recently is like when I want to go, like the context 7.1, say I want something about docs. The other cool thing you can do is you can say, go grab the relevant context from the docs that I need for this project. And then you can say, not only do I want to like have this in the context of my conversation, put that in a file, like put that in a markdown file in my repo so that I have that context. And it's like the synthesized knowledge of what I need to know about X library for my repo. And it's just there, right? So then you don't even have to go out and do the research and everything. It's just local to your repo and everyone benefits.
I think that's the pattern I saw before MCP is just if you have meeting notes, your requirements, just make a markdown file, put it in your repo. And as soon as agent mode goes out to find context, it will find like, oh, there's a whole conversation about this. I will learn about parts of that. So this agent mode will figure out everything in your code base. So if it's in your code base, it will be able to look at it.
That's cool.
And you can attach it too. Like if you wanted to look at it, you would just explicitly attach it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I also like throwing, in the custom instruction, you can actually also throw a URL. So if there's like a public link that you want to reference as context, that'll actually, you can do that in the prompt box like manually, but if you wanted to like have it be, oh, I have this doc I want you to look at when you're implementing something, you can throw that in your custom instruction, and then the right context will be pulled in on every request because it's custom instruction. Yeah,
I'm waiting here until it gets to task, but I can talk about it now already. Okay. So this is running as a task configured in VS Code already. So if I open task.json, this is the basic npm run def wrapper that tells VS Code if I hit Command-Shift-B that it should build my app and just give me a preview. And that's the way that actually now Copilot knows everything that happens in VS Code, so it actually knows that it can run tasks and preview the app. So imagine now you can wire up your build task, your linting task, anything that you run in your own dev cycle. If it's wired up into VS Code, the agent can easily run it. You can also give it CLI commands if you don't have that in VS Code.
That's neat.
But the way here, it now knows actually that the task is already running, and it won't actually restart in the back. Because that's what you get with agent mode sometimes, where it's like, oh, we're going to npm run dev. No, it's already running.
Yeah.
And then we'll just do it again. Maybe it's outside in another terminal, so it doesn't know about that.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then that's, I think, the way to make this work as well, having the task set up, but then also having proper linting tools. So in this case, I'm working in TypeScript, so I get out of the box. The agent can check a lot of the errors that are happening. It's actually now working on fixing the errors. And that's the agent actually every time it writes a file or edits a file, it will afterwards check the linting if there's any errors, new errors after that edit introduced, and will then follow up to fix it. And that's kind of that self-repair that you see in this agent of kind of learning, I did this work correctly? And the more that you can introduce, like who has other custom linting tools in their VS Code? Cool, a few. Yeah, like there's a really cool ones like there's one for accessibility from Axe. So I think that's like really, and that's like these inner loop experiences that where you don't have to push it to CI/CD, but you make the mistake and just a red squiggle in your editor. That's what helps agent mode as well. So I think with those investments.
That's super cool.
And we get there.
Still on some charts. That's what's going on.
Still on some charts. Yeah. Meanwhile, we got some commits happening. Let's see. So if we now, it's still working on stuff, but let's see if we can do a snapshot of something. So who's been using the auto-generate commit message in VS Code? We shipped it, very simple and bare bones, and it got up to like the #1 upvoted issue before we shipped it of like, this is the one feature I want from AI. I wanted to write my commit messages, which is amazing. We're shipping agent mode.
That's not your favorite thing as a developer, writing commit
yes.
messages?
Sorry. Yes, this is actually, and it just improved in the past 2 versions. If you see it like being more kind of descriptive of what actually happens, this is a recent change.
And we have custom instructions for this too, right? So if I want a certain formatting or my company makes me do something like that, I could always specify I want the messages done in this way, right?
Yeah, for the longest time in like proper Vibe form, I had it set like summarize any changes in less than 6 words. So just want to have keep the vibes going with short commit messages.
I went the opposite way. Like James Montemagno was like, I got a table, and every single file I want you to do like a couple sentences on what you changed or modified or added in this file. And so now that's actually what I do for commits, which isn't useful because you can go back through the commit history and be like, that changed, and I don't have to view the diffs or anything, right? Yeah,
so last one maybe, so this is now going off the rails. I'm not sure, it's still, I think midway through, it did a mistake, and I didn't watch enough, so I was
distracting
two different vibes. So who has found these pause and stop buttons down here? They're useful. Like that's, oftentimes I see people like, oh, but agent mode went off and it did something totally wrong and I couldn't stop it. Yes, you can. You can pause it at any time. They actually say the little pause icon, and you can then use that time to review and adjust it. So in this case, I might actually just do it from scratch. Just undo.
So what are the scenarios where you would just reprompt and say, I want you to fix this versus like starting a new thread? What's the difference between those two things?
If it's just a slight design, if it's slightly off, I think that's a good case of, and when you still have some reasoning through like what it did wrong,
right?
Like you installed the wrong library, or you did something else before wrong, or I see you installed the wrong version. I know this version will fix it. So if you kind of have an idea of how to steer it, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know, then
start a new.
Yeah.
Well, I think like the interesting thing, like agent mode, obviously each thing that it does is building on the previous thing. Generally, it's very good that it has that history because it's like, well, if I just read this file to understand what it does, maybe my next action is to write to that file, right? And so sending the history is generally a positive. But once it starts going down these wrong paths, right, that history also biases it in a negative direction, and then it becomes harder to kind of dig itself out of that hole. And so that's often when I'm like, okay, let's start fresh. And so when you start this new thread, you're basically restarting your history, right? You don't have all the thread history, for better and worse, that you had in the previous conversation with the model.
Yeah, so now actually, because I restarted it, I got the right settings, so you can actually do review everything. I can go in and change it here as well if I needed to, and I can now continue because this is Perplexity Ask. This is a tool that's fine to use, so I'm gonna say always allow. So that's the fine-grained access you have here. And now actually, previously I ran Claude 3.7, and now we're running GPT 4.1, so let's see if that wins.
I like that.
But meanwhile, we can also switch over because we have stuff to show.
Yeah, we can keep going. I like to talk, so I'll need as much time as I can. All right. Did we already talk through this slide? I don't remember.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mentioned most of it.
Okay, cool.
OK, so what we said, instructions are important. Update them as needed. Commit often. I try to wait for it to complete, but you want to just get to working state and get it into Git, and then it's really easy to just, the next edit goes all right. You just
How much does a commit cost, Harold? Is it free? That's what I always say. Commits are free.
Commits
just
are
do
free.
it.
Yes, and then what I showed, pause if it goes off and you're like, what's going on? Like, should I pause it? Should I just wait? And you can pause it anytime and just let it review what it does. If it's on the wrong track, just steer and autocorrect. Spec-Driven, you want to take it?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be a PM if I said, hey, how can we turn this into a spec, right? But it really does, this whole talk we've been showing, the more context you add, the better results you're going to get are, right? And so there's this high-level flow that I'm about to show you of basically going from, I have this idea, let's turn this, it doesn't have to be into a detailed document, but some sort of high-level specification. Then let's turn that into a plan, right? And of course, along the way, I'm iterating with the agent, do I like this plan? Do I like the requirements you proposed? And then basically that upfront planning solves a lot of the problems you might have with agent mode when you're working in a real code base of don't do that, I need you to do that. And that's where being a developer and knowing the code that you're working in is super helpful. You can be like, this plan doesn't make any sense, right? And you can kind of prod it and be like, don't do that, do this. And so we're going to basically do this flow of going from I have a spec to I have a plan to actually passing that to the model for implementation. Custom prompts and tools, we'll show that in a second. Basically the ability to have certain prompts that drive each of these workflows, like the planning workflow and the spec workflow, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I will actually show this off. Let's go to 3. I think that's what number I'm at. Yep. So this is a iOS app that I've been building. It's called Dropped. I'll just reset the onboarding. This has all kind of been done in agent mode. I haven't actually gone to the editor once for this application, but I like to pretend that I'm an OK cyclist. And so I've always been fascinated with the idea of hey, what if I built my own training plan application? And so this is just simple onboarding screen. And then I kind of had this detail screen with some workouts. This is all mock data right now. But what if I wanted to come in and see what actually one of these workouts is and go do that workout? How would I do that? So let's just quickly jump into the code. So this is a Swift app, native iOS app. So I got some, this is just the core logic for my application. That's just the Xcode project. I got tests. I got unit and UI tests, so that's exciting. I have these docs, so I'll show you those. I have this idea doc. This is what I started with. It even has things like the business model, marketing plan, and this is just kind of at a high level describing the application. I have this research document, which basically says, when I was starting the idea of building this application, what are some things that this app needs to actually do? What are the problem statements? Who are possible competitors? So I use Perplexity for that. And then I have this memory file, which I don't actually have in the instructions file, but this was the thing that Harold was kind of briefly referencing is this idea of here's where all my files are. And that way if the model needs to go find something, it doesn't literally have to parse through everything to look for what it's trying to find. It can actually come here and get some of that context right away. Okay, and then Harold already showed instructions, so I won't show this too much. I'll talk a little bit about some instruction work I've done here to make this whole workflow work. But if I come over into prompts, this is something called prompt files, which we introduced in a recent release. And this is basically like if instructions are every single request, or in certain situations like the apply to thing you said, I want to kind of supplement to the model some context. This is like, hey, I have a scenario, and I keep finding myself typing the same thing over and over and over again, or a variety of which, into the prompt box. I don't want to do that, right? I want to write a really good prompt that I know works, and I want to share that across my whole team. And so this is like my research prompt. And so you can see here, like, I want you to clarify details that could be helpful. Here's my syntax of how I actually reference one of the tools. I want you to look for certain things. I want you to summarize your finding. I want you to research more if you need to. Here's the things I care about. And when I'm done, output it to that research file, right?
Yeah,
so that's
here, it's not writing code, right? It's all just about
exactly
thinking and planning.
Yep, so this is all planning, but you can imagine like having a refactoring prompt or something like that.
Yep.
And then at the top, kind of similar to the apply to thing you said at the top, we have this like header section. So I can say, hey, what mode do I actually want you to run this in this case, agent mode. What tools? So I want you to use Perplexity. Yep. And then this is kind of the description thing you were mentioning earlier. Like eventually we'll be able to say, oh, it seems like Pierce wants to research something. Like we should do that, right?
And the tools mean it doesn't actually edit files, because editing files is a tool, and it doesn't have access to editing files.
So this would just be a read-only research query, only using Perplexity. And then so let's jump over into like actually building this. So in this case, I'm not even specifying any tools, which just means the tools I already had set up will just work. So I'm not constraining the tools in any way. This is kind of my spec prompt. So you can see here, I could put this like, I'll show you in a second. I could put this like as text, but I didn't feel like typing it out for the purposes of the demo. But here's essentially what I want to do. I want to build this detail view. I want a workout overview. I want you to have my intervals. I want you to build a graphical view of those intervals. I don't want you to touch anything else. I just want you to build this detail view for me. And so like I'll come in and I'll edit like this. This might be the only thing I edit, right? And then I have these rules. So before you get started, look at the idea file to make sure you have the right context. Here is kind of the rules for writing this spec. Next, make sure I'm happy, right? Got to make sure Pierce is happy before we move forward. And then finally, when we're all good, output this to this file, right? Yep. And the benefit of outputting all these things to files, right? The thing we were saying earlier, now it's in the context. The model can find that if it needs to, right? And so this is kind of my workflow. So I'm actually just going to click. I love a button. I love a play button.
The play button.
So we're just going to hit the play button. But I'm actually going to come over here first, and I'm going to make sure I'm in edit mode. And there's different types of models that are good at different things, right? And so for planning, I really like to use like a reasoning model. So I'm going to use, I could use 𝗦𝗲𝗏, but I'm going to use Sonnet 3.7 thinking here. And then I could hit that play button, or I could just come in here and I could say /spec. So we'll go ahead and kick that off. And you see a whole bunch of things are like auto-attached. These are those instructions that, in my case, I just like breaking up the instructions into like separate files. So like I have instructions on here's how you run the iOS simulator, right? Here's how you run my tests. Here are my code rules for Swift, right? In this case, I'm actually just like globally applying it. I'm not even using like a real cloud pattern to say I only want this for certain file types. I could do that if I wanted. But even organizationally, like that's helpful because this file can get very unwieldy if you're just throwing everything in there.
Yeah, it's easier to manage your own stuff and then see
exactly
what's happening. Yeah.
So like, let's see, I got my detail view here. It says, okay, let's do this, let's do that. Like in a real scenario, I would kind of go back and forth with the model. You can see it's giving me some different things to think about, like accessibility, performance. I'm just going to say, like, I don't care about any of that. All right. So then now we have kind of our, okay, output this, please. I open up my, what was I going to do next? My planning prompt, and we'll go ahead and start talking about this while this is outputting. This is the next step. So we have our spec, right? And this is the next prompt I'll use, which is the planning prompt. So it's basically turn this spec into an actual step-by-step plan for the model to go execute, right?
So far, it's high level. It doesn't know about code base, right?
Exactly. And so here you can kind of see, OK, I want you to generate a plan. Please keep things simple. Like I find that certain models, especially Claude, are like, I want to way over-architect this thing. We need interfaces everywhere. I'm like, no, please don't do that right away. I say, for this plan, I don't want you to like say the exact code blocks, right? Pseudocode is OK. Maybe if you throw some real code in there, that's fine, but that's not necessary. First, let's review the docs. That's always what I say. Like, look at the context I gave you. Please make sure you're looking at it. Then create a detailed implementation plan. Here's how I want you to structure that as a markdown file that describes each step, right? The task and files that would be affected by it. after you do that, always close with the following steps. I want you to write tests. I want you to run my app, right? And then same thing as before, make sure I'm happy before you do anything, and then output the plan.
Yeah, I think that step to write tests, that's part of like how to make this work in large code bases. Either before or after, even before, like write tests before, and then it's easier to review.
Exactly, and so I have a custom instruction that says anytime you add a new file to my project, update that memory file. So this is how I'm keeping the memory up to date, right? I have a custom instruction for that. So we just added a new file, so it's updated my memory file. All right, cools. So let's actually go and run my planning prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Would it switch from edit to agent now? Nice.
No, I'm gonna stay in edit for the thinking model, which isn't available in agent mode. So for the planning, like it's weird because it feels like you're not making progress right away, right? Because you're doing a lot more upfront thinking, but then you kind of take both the planning process takes time and then using thinking models takes time. But then when you throw it to the model, it does a way better job, and you spend less time in that toil of like, oh, it's not doing what I want, right?
Yeah, I had specs that I wrote, and then 5 minutes and the agent mode was done, and it just followed all the instructions of how it should look like, and cool, it's done. I didn't have to do anything else. So I think that planning step is great for as it gets more complex and your code base gets more complex, but you can even go from spec directly to writing the code. Yep.
Okay, so let's look at this plan that is generated here. Okay, create a workout detail view is step 1. Create this list view component. It wants to create it in a separate file. I don't want it to do that. So like I'll get feedback like, hey, can you put interval list view into workout detail view? So like this is an example of how I'm kind of reviewing the plan. Same for interval graph view. This is what I'm saying. Like sometimes the model just gets very aggressive about I want to create like things for everything.
Once you create structure in your code base.
Yeah, it's trying to make me be a better engineer, and I'm like, please do not do this. So then, okay, navigation from the main view to this detail view, that makes sense to me. Build and run the app, write some tests. You can see it is generating like some Swift code, but it's mostly pseudocode. All right, so I'm going to give it this feedback. And then after this, we'll go ahead and kick off our implementation. And actually, like the thing is, I just ran this with a thinking model. I'm actually going to come back and run this with 4.1. There's no reason for it to rethink, really. It's a very simple task, right? I need you to delete this thing and move it to this. I don't need you to rethink the whole plan, right? Yeah. So like this is an example where it's like, I could have used a thinking model. It would have done the job. It just would have taken a long time, right? And that's not necessary for the task I gave it. So I'm going to say that, and then it's going to like do exactly what I don't want it to do.
Let's see.
Yeah, so see, it created my workout detail view. So then I'm going to come in, and what I'll do is I'll just doodle-loop. This is also like a behavior I see with certain models. They like really preference to writing files.
You can now rerun it, by the way, with a new model, if you try that.
Ooh, how do I do that?
So switch the model and hit
oh,
rerun.
I meant switch the, wait.
No, the model.
Oh, okay. And then just switch it to like 3.5?
Yeah, should be still fast.
And then just literally hit the play button?
No, just retry.
Oh, look at that. Learning new things. So see, I think it's like biasing towards creating that file. So I'm going to kill that.
It's in your prompt, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is like a good example where it's like, I need to go to my, just put this in this, not separate file. So this is like a good example of something where the model is going off and doing something that I don't want it to do, right? And so like I would normally go and say, okay, I need to update my custom instructions so this doesn't happen again, right? So this is like the type of behaviors you might notice where it's like, I just want to redo this. All right, so we have our plan. So what I'm actually going to do, we're running out of time here. We said we like to talk.
Yeah, and demo.
And demo. So we're open the markdown viewer here so we can see our steps. Looks like it has my changes. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm in agent mode. I'm going to go ahead and pull in just as explicit context so it doesn't have to search. Let's go ahead and pull in the idea, the spec, and the plan as context. And then I'm going to run my implement prompt, which is very straightforward. It's like, just do what I want. And then when you finish a step, update that markdown doc, right? Let's go step by step. Don't try to do too much in one operation. And so then I'll just come in here. I'll actually use 4.1. The nice thing about using the planning process as well is you can typically go to like a faster model, right? Like 4.1's pretty fast in agent mode. You've done a lot of the upfront work of planning. Okay, if that's the case, then now I can go to something like 4.1 that's pretty fast, and maybe if I gave it no context, it would generate less good UI, but because I've done the upfront planning, right, now I can go to a fast model to actually implement it.
Yeah, the reasoning model are good to fill in the blanks and make sense of a lot of complex data, like if you have a debugging going on or need to look at the code base. But if you just have a clear plan and the clear files called out, it's just about writing code.
Exactly. So it's basically going through, and because I've given it this, this idea file, it kind of knows all right, what do I need to look for? So we've been iterating, we've been reading a lot. So when that happens, we're basically just making sure, hey, still good? Still going down the right path? So that's all we're doing when we say continue, nothing broke. So we're basically just gathering all the context we need about what's going on. And then we're going to build out this workout detail view. While that's going, I'll also quickly show my instructions that I have. So everyone has a different way of writing these things, and they all work, right? So this is XML. And I read somewhere on Twitter, and Twitter's always right, that XML works best with the model. And so I have this rules file. Here's where I'm describing that memory task. By the way, this repo's open source. I'll share the link at the end, and you can go steal what you want from it. But you can see here, here's my memory stuff. You're about to see when I make any code changes, I want you to do commits, like the auto commit thing. So you say, I want you to stage your commits. I want you to generate a short commit message. I want you to structure it with this way. So you can see step 1.
There it is.
Right, there it is. I have auto approve turned on, which is why this is just running. I have some other stuff for context. So a lot of my instructions are actually more about guiding tool calls than anything to do with code. So let's actually look at what we got here. So
you're basically infusing the workflow it's supposed to follow with the right tools.
Exactly. Right. So you can see here, okay, how many lines of code is this? Okay, excluding comments, I'm at 248. So it just kind of built out this whole view, right? And so now I'm actually going to go and if I go back to my plan and I close out of all my windows, you can see it marked off that one. All right, so we're done with that. All right, so now I'm going to say do step 2. And it may have actually, in some cases, the other interesting thing that you'll notice is it may have actually done it in step 1. And it's a good double check of did you actually do this, right? So let's see. So it's saying it already did step 2. That works for me. All right, step 3. We may actually get this thing running.
I forgot to check off.
Yeah. Well, we were on step 2.
And you also have an MCP in there, right?
I do, yeah. I'm about to show it off. I have an Xcode build MCP. So if you're doing iOS development, I do a lot of iOS dev. This MCP is pretty cool. You can basically drive Xcode from VS Code. So you can see I don't have Xcode open, and I'm building an iOS app, which is pretty sweet. Okay, so we did step 3. All right, so now we got to do step 4, please. And so this is actually going and updating the navigation from my initial plan view to point to this. So let's go do that.
So in proper spec-based vibing, you would look at the code, but this is live, so.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I would say it's a spectrum, right? Like we said, I'm not all the way on the extreme of I need to review every single detail. That is kind of the nice thing about having tests and all this other stuff is I feel one of those things is a nice catch for these things if it actually falls through the cracks.
Right, because you added structured, so you know the instructions from the code base, and then you added your own plan, so you limited what it should be able to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, literally worst case, this is all in a branch. I'm committing every time. Commits are free, Harald. We can always roll back. All right, so now what's step 5? Run the app. Let's do step 5. And so this is where it's actually going to go use my Xcode build MCP. So I'll pop that open real quick. I know we're running up against time here.
Yeah, so the vibes are lower because you're basically down to let's run step 1, step 2, step 3. You're more reviewing, but I think you're still vibing in that ideation. You're vibing on a higher level, right?
Yes.
You're still focusing on the outcome in the spec, in the plan.
Exactly, yeah. And I think this is a very good way in practice to use agent mode because I think in a really, really big code base, right, you're going to need to really have good thought out plans on how you would actually go solve these problems.
Is it running now? This is where it takes.
Yeah, you can change away. It's just building right now. Okay. And if we get it going, we'll change
So mention all these testing, debugging, setup, custom DevOps tool like Xcode. Quick, take a screenshot. And done. So tips, the spec,
Yep.
The review steps up front, so you spend more time on the planning. You do maybe write the test first, maybe write the spec first, or the open API spec, and then keep the spec in sync with the memory. Those are kind of the key ingredients to make this work reliably and at scale across the team. So you not collaborate on the spec, you can collaborate on everything else. So I'm thinking across all of these vibing types, it's really important to keep experimenting, like all the things we figured out, like, oh, there's a memory file, I can keep updating. Like, how do I prompt it to use tools? Then the continuous feedback, like you're still in the flow, like it might not have completed step 2, and you just notice, like it actually did it, but it didn't check it off.
Exactly.
So AI will get things wrong because they're just instructions. They're not like laid down rules. And they will get better over time. And then lastly, I think refine the process. So this memory file might go away eventually. Maybe there's another feature in VS Code that lets you keep track of tasks. So all of these things will be evolving over time, and your process will also change.
Yep. But the cool thing is, like, using basically instructions and tools, you can customize agent mode to be pretty much whatever you need it to be, which is pretty cool.
Right. So that's kind of your playground. There's related sessions. There's so many. And there should be another one. Next steps. Oh, they took out the other slide. So sad. There was a book recommendation for book signing. They're all here. OK, should we go back to your?
And we're still building over here.
OK, so
that's
just
the native iOS toolchain for you.
To see the app in action.
Yeah, stick around.
Stick around. Yeah, just go through. If you have a few kind of bonus ones. So if you use, if you need somebody using AI wrong, you will quickly get those mistakes. So, oh, it got confused or worked in a few minutes, which happened to me. So that's where breaking it down into stages really helps. Like, you don't want like super long running AI sessions that are like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. AI will forget some parts of what it did before, and like, oh, somebody already edited the file. Like, yes, Copilot, you did that. So there's just like, and we'll work on that. Like, so there's more tools coming to make that better. Then the whole task passing thing, like making sure that actually Copilot can run the tests, and it will look at the test results as well and then fix accordingly. Wrong syntax, wrong library, that's where really instructions help, and infusing that kind of best practice architecture. Then the last one, the wrong tools, we showed this off a lot. It's really about this. Do you have a tool drop down? You can pick the tools. You can do prompts that reduce down the tools. You have a lot of control to get just to the right amount of tools. Is it working? Should we switch back?
Still building, bro. So we can wrap it up. But stick around afterwards, and I can show you the app.
Yeah, come on over. I'm going to show you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.